actually had this post. She's putting a smooch on. People did not put smooches on each other back 120 years ago. You should have met my grandma. I asked, because since you're thinking about this, but you want to ask folks, you know, how I met your mother kind of stuff. How did you meet Grandpa? She says, he was this dashing registrar. He was from Scotland. He showed up. I looked him up and down. And on the first day, I said, he'll do. I have a lot of tough nurses on that side of the family, so they give me a little bit of perspective. This has been kind of a bittersweet and a sad week. Two of the folks that have really been wonderful and dear to our cardiac program have passed away. Steve Liu was the chairman of cardiology at Harvard, UCLA, the year before I got there. And a brilliant guy with just an amazing history. He and his family got out of China around the communist time to get in. And he was very, very successful with medical practice, with property. And he put together the cath lab at Harvard. He also put one together for us at a little company. Somewhere along the line, I think it's, Nick Scott has a picture, a couple of pictures of the first two heart catheterizations that were done back then. He brought in John Reddington, and cardiac surgery got off to quite a start. His health has not been good. He did make it to 93 years, but just he was just a wonderful, wonderful fellow, and just a little pause. The other one is one of our nurses, Ida Kobayashi, who probably a lot of you remember. If you've ever had an angiogram done at a little company, if you've ever had a cardiac test done, she was the friendly face that you would see. Probably one of the most uplifting people in the world, pretty much uplifting people that we have. Our cardiac nurses are superb. In line of my grandma, who was a tough old nurse, my mom, who was a tough old Canadian OR nurse, just a little thing is a physician. A good nurse will make whatever kind of doctor you are a lot better, or make whatever hospital you are a lot better. A good nurse will keep us from killing people when we really don't mean to. And, it's just a little comment, just a little praise for our nurses and the people that we get to work with. But it was just a little pause and a little bit of reflection as we go forward. Those before us are going to pass, they're going to be replaced by other people. With my grandson who wants my job, I'm going to have to do a lot of time in the gym and a lot of vitamins. It takes a long time to replace us as doctors, just a thought. Currently, I've got 5 grown children, 10 grandkids, and their ages about 13 through 26. For a young person like myself, that's pretty accomplished. But even have a great grandson who's about 7 months right now. In addition to medicine, there's a lot of things I like to do, and I like to choose what they are. There's a lot of things that I love to do. I like to go to the gym. I like ocean sports. I still like to surf. I still like to swim. Love to do the peer-to-peer every year. The thing I like the most is running. You know why? Everything hurts. And you got an audience, and everything hurts. And when you have everything hurt, you want to have someone who listens to you. When you're in your body for about 70 years, if it doesn't hurt, it probably isn't working. I like to do that. As I mentioned last time, one of the other things I like to do, I'm the chairman of the Physician Wellbeing Committee, both at both hospitals. I get very, very much involved with my colleagues who are just not having a good day. If you're depressed, if you have issues with depression, with drugs, with drink or anything else, I'm the go-to guy. I really very, very much enjoy the chance to work with other folks. And we can share a little bit of our experience, strength, and hope with each other, and kind of take the pain of our soul and make things a little better. I sure like to do that. Another hobby I picked up that was really kind of cool back in high school, I'm an amateur radio operator. KK6 BJ. And
KD6 OLH. KD6 ATJ.
See what cool guys we've got? Well, this was kind of the ultimate geek hobby. They had 2 TV repair shops in the small town. They'd throw the stuff out, and so I went down to my usual inimitable way and said, can I have that? If you take it away, and we never see it again, and we don't see very much of you, yes, you can. The fellow who taught chemistry and physics in high school was a ham radio operator, and he had tools, and he encouraged us to come in after school. Even after school sports, and you could go in and Mr. Westlake would show us how to make radios and everything else. And I wish there were a couple more Mr. Westlakes out there in school for kids that like to put together things. if you're listening right now, I'm sorry about burning down the garage, all those extra fuses, but you've got to sit down and take a little bit of a risk to sit down and try to perfect some of your sport. What I'm saying by all of this, I think it's very important for me and for all of us, not to define ourselves just by our job, what our job used to be, or anything else. We need to go out and diversify our portfolio, as they say. It is not my natural inclination, by the way, to get on the phone and Twitter, get on Facebook, or get on Skype. But if I want to talk to the little darlings, they probably, unless they want to park at the beach and get into Grandma's full refrigerator, they may not want to seek me out that much. I'm going to have to go to them. So I'm just suggesting, if you want to stay connected, pick up something new, learn it. Skype is good. I'll tell you my Twitter account if you really want. We can chat on it, and a little bit of Facebook. Suggestion you might want to make it fun. Of course I'm talking to you. I'm talking to all of you here. So what do we do? What do we do about this? As I indicated, I just kind of enjoy what stayed the same. I just enjoyed what has changed. But let's talk a little bit about be prepared. Pass out a sheet here, if you would.
Sure.
One of the last topics we have, how to stay away from doctors, which I think is pretty good, except for checkups. I think we kind of like to do that. And except for visiting your friends who are probably too old to ski or a little bit too clumsy on icy sidewalks, how to stay out of hospitals. This is a sheet, and it doesn't explain everything, but it's more just for topics of conversation. We give this to our patients sometimes, and just go over some of kind of the basic things. The basic things are just that, they're basic. If we can have a diet that, if it allows, where we have 5 helpings of fresh fruit, solids, and vegetables. If we watch whatever might be a bad habit for us. I'm going to bet there probably aren't a lot of heavy smokers left in this room right now. It was sure a good idea when I was a kid. Heck, Ronald Reagan, he was a regular visitor in my house. He was kind of small, he was kind of flat, he was black and white, but, and he also was a doctor at that time. He had this little round thing. I've never really understood what they call them. They're a mirror. Makes you look like a doctor when you put it on. And I think he was telling me that if I smoked Chesterfields, it would make me a better person. Well, the rules have changed. Drugs, prescription or non-prescription, you gotta be careful. They mess with our head. Drink if you have a wrong biologic disposition, probably isn't terribly good for us. But the pitch on there, again, is get involved. Get involved with people. Get involved with our family. You don't necessarily have to have a religious program, but I'm sure suggesting you have a spiritual program, one where we can sit back and kind of look at the fact that we're involved in a very short and a very wonderful adventure, this thing called life. Have a little bit of awe. If we need to ask for forgiveness or give forgiveness, give it. Get on with things. Take the stressful conversations that we have for ourselves, let them go. Just a little pitch from a guy who's an old doctor who's been doing this a long time. Sometimes just those very simple things do an awful lot to give us just that inner peace, give our body, give our mind, give our soul a little bit of rest, where we can stay away from doctors except for regular checks. Exercise, wonderful. By the way, when you're in my office, you don't come in with a walker. It's a go-kart. When you come in, it's not a cane. It's a walking stick. Get a device. You need a device. Get out and use it. Do not be shy if you need a device, but get up, get out. By the fact that everyone is out here, I think I have folks, I'm probably singing songs to the choir, am I not? Yeah, pretty much so. Okay, I think we better give away another gift. All righty. How often did the Winter Olympics occur?
Every 4 years.
All right. Give someone a said 4 years. Where will the next Winter Olympics be held?
Japan. China.
Brazil.
Korea. Which Korea?
South.
Give South Man a tip.
South.
Don't you think North Korean Winter Olympics would be kind of cool? No.
Only if they strung him up.
I think that they have a committee working on that. Okay, final, and then we're going to go on a little bit more. Which country has been the host to the most Winter Olympics?
Norway.
Norway? Any other guess? Sweden. Placid, Squaw Valley, Lake Placid again, Salt Lake City. And if we take enough vitamins and go to the gym, maybe us again. All right. Some further thoughts. Earthquakes. How many people ever let their car go lower than half a tank of gas? Don't do that. Don't do that. When your tank has gone down about a half, fill it up. How many people don't have an earthquake bag in the trunk of their car? Oh, good. Here's the thing. People are raising their hands. You're probably sitting next to someone who's impossible to buy a gift for. Earthquake bag. Here's the deal. We need this in our car. Absolutely. We need a little bag that has $20 bills. The ATMs are not going to work after a big earthquake. We need a case of water. Cases of water are fun to get. Don't let it get too stale. We need a thing of water. We need a little bit of canned food, and we need a can opener to go with it. I think that's a pretty good idea. Power bars are pretty good. We need soap and a washcloth if we want to be hygienic. That's a good thing to do. We need a bag, a large bag, and some toilet tissue. I can go further, but trust me, we really need that. We need a radio. We need some batteries. So far, it's pretty good. Did I mention that part about a half a tank of gas? Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you store water for emergencies, how often should you change them?
Well, when I go out and around, my wife and I drink it out of the thing because we're usually on fairly long trips and I replace it that way. A case of water will last a pretty long time. Trust me, if you have a big earthquake and you're thirsty, it really lasts a very, very long time on there.
What I mean is, now I have several gallons stored.
Excellent.
But they've been there for maybe 2 years. How often should you turn the storage on?
About every 2 years. Yeah, plastic bottles and metals. You read enough stuff. People who want to entertain you with the evening news, they'll point out the toxic problems and the plastics that leach out. I really don't think it's a particular problem. When we're out and about, we're going to need a certain amount of water to cook with. We're going to need a certain amount of water to bathe. That's that part about that little washcloth and the soap in there. I really don't think that there is any particular big issue with drinking water and the like. Medicines. We also probably ought to have somewhere along the line, and take a look at it. Some pills don't keep very well in hot cars. Some keep very, very well in hot cars. Probably ought to have some medicines, at least a minimum of about a week's worth. Because if something bad happens, we won't be able to show up with our credit card or wherever our pharmacy is. They're going to be probably pretty well busy if there are injuries. Probably an extra week worth of.
Well, you can't put it in your car.
Mm-hmm. As I say, it depends on what it is. You probably want to have it in a grab bag you take with you. Want to have it. Want to be sure you're not running low on medicines at home though. Just a thought. When we had the big, I was a medical student when we had the big Northridge earthquake. I was at UCLA. That, by the way, is a very scary building to be in when they have a quake. The sleeping rooms were 2 levels down. The building's about 11 stories up, and it starts rattling, starts shaking. And we're on these army bunk beds. Mine moved this way about 5 feet, came back, and the fellow next to me had. I think you're sure you got a whole week's worth.
It's only 1 minute. It's a 4-pack.
I like that. You see, that's the other side of optimism. If you have medicines for 4 days, it means you're going to live longer and prosper. I like that. So the fellow next to me, he sat down and he sat up and he said a little prayer. Jesus, he says, this is it. And then he fell back asleep. And I'm sitting there and he forgot to tell me what this and it were. Anyway, we evacuated the hospital, and pretty much the folks that we saw thereafter were ones who ran out of medicines. One of our medical staff ran out of, he had cloudy water, he wasn't checking his blood sugars, he came in ketoacidosis and things of that sort. So I think it's kind of an important thing to plan ahead for. You might want to have pencil, paper, card, ice, some walking shoes, and probably the most important thing, a meeting point where if you can all get together at the end of it. This has everything and nothing to do with medicine, but it has an awful lot to do with Baden-Powell. Way to go. Just medical topics, what's new, what's old. There was an ad not too long ago from Kaiser. I like the Kaiser ads. I very, very much, it's important to look at your best and most worthy competition and praise them where you can. They said check regularly with your doctor, exercise regularly. I like the things that they have on TV. And they said if you've had heart problems, ask your doctor. Should you be on an ACE inhibitor? Should you be on a statin? Should you be taking aspirin every day? And by and large, they're correct. That's one of the good questions to ask in there. Simple, effective, affordable things. If we take 100 people who had heart problems and just randomly, we don't give them aspirin, ACE inhibitors, statin, another 100 that do, that 100 in there, there's going to be a lot more, enjoying a lot more health for a long time. So let's hear it for some of the Kaiser ads. Not every ad that we hear is a bad one. My favorite ad, though, are for the new agents, which I wanted to come on to. I'm looking around, I'm going to bet probably about 15% of this audience has atrial fibrillation or similar heart rhythms, because we're all in the atrial fibrillation age. I've only had 3 episodes. I didn't like any of them at all. Disliked it very, very much, indeed. But there's an ad, in fact, there's 3 ads for 3 products. Pradaxa, Xarelto, and Eliquis are 3 drugs. Ask your doctor, I always enjoy this, ask your doctor if Pradaxa is right for you. And at the end of this, it's usually followed by, if you've had problems with the drug that I just mentioned, call 1-800-BAD-DRUG, and Jupiter Jones will have an appointment to see if you can get a little money by the fact that this new medicine is causing ill effects. I'm mentioning these medicines because they're new, and it doesn't necessarily make them better. It just means that they're new and they're all new. Every single medicine that we get has potential downsides. Every single one. What works beautifully for one person, what works beautifully for 8 people out of 10, you may have a horrible reaction if you're that every other person or that 2 people out of 10. And that's probably why it's you don't just walk into most pharmacies, at least in this part of North America, and self-prescribe antibiotics, antiarrhythmics, or other things. That there's some downsides. And the medicines, by and large, they tend to fight with each other, and they tend to fight with our food. The most common medicine that we use for atrial fibrillation to prevent strokes is warfarin. What is warfarin also used for? Rat poison.
Who said rat poison?
Yep, it is. And that was one of the jobs that I had in high school. There was one summer I got to work as a lifeguard, a disc jockey, and a rat exterminator. If you want to impress girls, what job do you not want to tell them? Disc jockeys. Women hate music, they told me. I went a long time without a girlfriend, by the way, back in school. But yeah, a large dose of warfarin is very, very effective for terminating rats. A cheery thought, rats, big ones, can squeeze themselves down, less than ½ an inch. They can squeeze under doors, they can crawl up pipes on the inside. And when they do this, if they're completely anticoagulated, they go squish and they bleed, and that's how it works. Isn't that a cheery thought? Oh, doesn't that make the dessert a little bit better over there? Just a little free conversation. But I mention that because you're aware, and I'm aware, that a high dose it can be a very, very poisonous substance, as can the new drugs that get Jupiter Jones' attention. Every medicine that you want to do something, if you give enough, or if you have the right genes, can do a whole lot of things that we don't want. Is there anyone that doesn't carry a list of their medicines in their pocket? Sin no more, my child, and carry a list of medicines in your pocket. It's terribly important because, Lord forbid, a bus would run over our toe, we have a high fever, we're not thinking very, very clearly. It's very, very good that on somewhere, a piece of paper that we keep a couple of copies, maybe on our computer, these are my doctors, these are my medicines, these are things that I'm allergic to that I really just shouldn't be on. It's probably a pretty good idea. There's a lot of future medicines that are being prepared out there. It is impossible to turn on the evening news and not see about them. Unfortunately, evening news has become entertainment. If things are working very well, you don't see it on the evening news. I'm trying to think of the last time I saw it emblazoned that 4 kids make Eagle Scout, et cetera, along the line. Yeah, stuff I see on my news I really don't want to watch too much of. It's become entertainment, and it's terribly sad. When we're looking at medicines, we probably won't hear a whole lot about future ones that work. We're going to hear about 1-800-BAD-DRUG. Who is Newton Minow, and what is his famous quote? Give you a hint, he was the chairman of the FCC. Newton Minow.
Television is a vast wasteland.
Absolutely. Television is a vast wasteland. This was back a long time ago before current TV became current TV. One of the things I really like to do, I like to see a lot of my folks, a lot of my patients after they retire. Because usually both spouses don't retire at the same time. And in a way, I find this is really kind of an opportunity. The secret of retirement is don't. When you retire, find something that occupies the mind, body, and soul and do it. And one conversation, I'm looking around, they're not here, thank goodness, so I can tell the story without names. Guy was an engineer, wife is still a schoolmarm. I walked in, and I'm looking, and you could almost cut the air. I thought, this is going to be kind of fun. How's it going? I said, gosh, you've been retired about 4 months. How's it going? Fine, just fine. Do you think it's the guy who said that? Yeah, it was the guy. Mrs. is saying. He turns the TV. He turns the TV on. Turns it on at 6. He watches Fox News. Around 10, he gets up and he starts yelling. He starts yelling at the TV. What do you think we should do? I said, turn the TV off and get a dog. and go for a walk. So, with all due respect to Newton Minow, be very careful of the TV. If you find you're watching it for too long, or you're yelling at it, turn it off and go for a walk. Does anyone here have a fat dog? Yeah, a fat dog. An overweight dog. You get a lottery ticket if you do. Okay. The quote that I heard last week was thusly. It was from one of my office staff. If your dog is too fat, you need more exercise. I've kind of gone on just discussing things in our hospital. We're making progress. We've gone on to computers a long time ago. We've been using a system called Camus, and it's going on to Epic. The people that come up with these things, they have a little sense of poetry in their hearts. The next time that we have this conversation, we're going to tell you stories about our Epic. Pretty much the way things are, we're trying to dictate notes. We dictate them and we have a voice recognition thing called Dragon. You're getting the general drift. We're talking about Epic and Dragon. When the nurses get medicines, especially the controlled ones, the dangerous one, what is the name of the system that they use? Pyxis. So how are things going? Well, the ladies are playing with the pixies and I'm doing battle with dragons. And that's sort of the progress that we're making in medicine after these many years. The rules are pretty much the same. If we document it, it happens. We can all go back and see what we did that worked well. We can go back and be self-critical and find out what hasn't worked so well. We can find that we can use technology that can improve our communication, where we can stay in touch with our family, where we can sit down and avoid medical accidents in the hospital. Or we can sit down and find that we're using the same thing where we're yelling in wild voices in an inanimate scream. Those are the opportunities, and that's pretty much the potpourri of what I have to say. I just want to ask for some questions. I would just want to hear anything about medicines, about treatment, stuff that may apply to you, stuff that may apply to anyone. Let's do this.
The advertisements on TV are not like doctors used to advertise. Nowadays they tell you, take this pill, but beware of all of these things like death, allergies, and all the rest of it. What is with that? Is it an openness with advertising, or are the pills actually like they say they're going to be? Will they kill you?
The question has to do with advertising medicines on TV. It's a brave new world. My favorite TV ad was for a sleeping medicine. sleeping pill. I think it was called Sonata. I haven't seen it for a while. Side effects. The principal side effect is may cause drowsiness. I kind of like it. When they're advertising, I think that most of these companies have a very extensive legal department, and they want to cover their assets, as it were. They want to be terribly sure that when there are adverse experiences, because you give enough medicines to enough people, death, disability, and everything are potential side effects from medicine. I think they want to cover it. At the end of it, they say, if you think this might be right for you, discuss it with your doctor. And I've always found that to be vaguely entertaining. I honestly have not prescribed a whole lot of medicines with that in mind, but the reason they keep having these ads that you're describing is that it probably works somewhere. And they probably just aren't donating money to TV things for the pleasure of it. But good question. Gesundheit. I think I saw a hand waving over here. Raise a hand and raise a voice.
His oxygen.
It's wonderful stuff. Yeah.
Last summer, on the just south of the Carson on-ramp on the 405, there was a billboard said the first person to live to be 150 years old is alive today.
I'm right here.
What's your take on something like that?
I'm going to take a lot more vitamins and go to the gym a lot more after hearing that cheery thing. I think it's something I'd like to put a lot of money on right now and be there to collect. We're designed to live pretty much our biblical length, about 70. But what has happened during the course of our life, we've been able to stretch that out a little bit. Between the time I started school, college, and now, 2 really good programs got up. Extraordinarily effective government programs that work. Medicare is one of them. Social Security is the other. When they were designed, we were designed to make it to a little bit over 67 years and a little bit over 72 and a half years. Life expectancy has gone way, way, way beyond that. We've gotten very, very good at making old people a lot older. A lot of it has to do with not smoking, exercising a little bit, some of the things that you read about on the sheet. A lot of it has to do with the fact that we found out some of the things that will make us sick. Screen for cancer. Go after it aggressively. Screen for heart disease. Heart attacks when I was in medical school, 25, 30, 40% mortality for a heart attack. Currently, you make it to the front door of our hospital. Chances are 93% you'll leave and be okay. That's pretty dramatic. Something's going to get us all, but we've kicked that ball down the road. Making it to 150. I hope we're up for it. The problem is that everything wears out. I had a car once. I had a Volvo. I had 300,000 miles on it, and took it in, and the Volvo fellow had the conversation that I have with people sometimes. Few too many miles. Ain't the rear end, ain't the transmission, followed by a whole lot of other parts. Machine is pretty much worn out. The billboard, maybe we'll make it to 150. We may not enjoy everything that is in our 300,000 mile Volvo body when we get there. But again, if you're a betting man, I'd put some money down and try to be there to collect it. The first person that's 150, that would be my take on it. But again, the media becomes entertainment. The billboard grabbed your attention. I bet you don't remember what they were selling, do you? Wasn't that good a billboard, otherwise you'd buy an Alpo or whatever they were selling on the billboard. But be very careful when you see something on the media. Newton Minnow was right. There's a bit of a vast wasteland. I think we better give away some prizes here. Pick a question.
Let's do.
Question?
Yes. Oh, 17.
Yeah.
What company designed the U.S. team bobsled?
BMW.
Got it, BMW.
Got it.
Got it.
BMW that said BMW?
I said
Okay. I didn't know that about the BMW. Oh, these are nice.
Oh, yeah. Now this one here, are you ready? Name one of the mascots chosen for the Winter Olympics. Mascots for the Winter Olympics. Mr. Polar Bear
Panda
won.
bear.
Polar Bear is one. There are two more.
turkey.
Rabbit.
Rabbit.
Panda.
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 Gotcha. I'm a star.
No, this one is impossible to get. Leopard.
Leopard.
You remember snow leopards and Mount Kilimanjaro and all that kind of stuff? And how he got here, Hemingway story. The three mascots for the Olympics are the hare, the polar bear, and the leopard. Hey, I didn't come up with the questions of the mascot. What can I say? Okay, a couple more questions.
Yes, would you enlarge on prednisone? Good medicine that's bad. What does it do when you can't breathe and they give it to you?
Prednisone, one of the steroids.
Yeah.
There's a couple of hormones that are naturally occurring. They occur in the adrenal glands. Adrenaline occurs in the medulla, the center of it. Pretty good for getting us up and going. The steroids, like cortisol, occur in the cortex of it. And I found when they could first isolate these products back 60, 70 years ago, you could take someone with horrible inflammation, rheumatoid arthritis, load them up with steroids, and suddenly would feel wonderful. They also recognized at that time that there were medical conditions that occurred because of an excess of cortisone, Cushing's syndrome. Harvey Cushing was a surgeon. He removed tumors that were secreting this and could cure this syndrome named after it. The people that he cured usually had a lot of pain and a lot of inflammation, couldn't breathe and everything after they suddenly were taken off of that. But prednisone is the medicine that we're talking about. It's an extraordinarily effective medicine. One of the strongest medicines for decreasing inflammation, and one of the strongest medicines for creating the potential for side effects if too much is given too long. Cushing's syndrome that we're talking about is pretty easy to recognize. The skin becomes extraordinarily thin, paper-like, big bruises. The cheeks become large. The part of the back up above between the shoulder blades becomes large. In medical textbooks, it's referred to as a buffalo hump. If you have a tendency towards diabetes, will occur. And then the difficult side effects occur. Prednisone is a very good medicine, kind of like all medicines, to remember Brylcreem. Okay, another gift for Brylcreem. What is the tagline for Brylcreem? Shout it out. Give it to the dab lady over
Where's the
there.
dabber? Oh, there's my girl.
And what is the next line in use Brylcreem, a little dab will do you? What is the next one?
Use a little in your hair.
That's the third one. Use Brylcreem, a little dab will do you. Use more, only if you dare. Use Brylcreem.
She said it. The girls will what?
Brylcreem foam. The ladies will pursue you. What do they want to do?
Put their hands on.
They like to run their fingers through your hair. Okay. We didn't do too good on Brylcreem. Let's try another one.
How long can you stay on prednisone?
I've seen people who've been on prednisone for 40 years, very comfortably, for serious conditions. President Kennedy was on prednisone because something bad happened to him. His adrenal glands quit. He had Addison's disease. They gave him a lot of prednisone. He got the big, dreadful side effect. He got osteoporosis. He got fractures. And that's why you see pictures of him in the rocking chair in the White House. He had horrible, horrible pain from his back from prednisone. I've seen people on prednisone over 40 years. The way that prednisone usually is given, some people just need to be on a maintenance dose, sometimes every other day, trying to get the dose down. Sometimes it's tough to get off prednisone. The side effects are just intolerable, even with lowering the dose. But for a lot of us who have had serious inflammatory conditions, usually a flare-up of horrible wheezing lung disease, pulsive steroids, getting on a high dose, getting it down over the course of a week or two, are just, they're the dramatic difference between being horribly sick and kind of sick, between being kind of sick and being able to come to a doctor's office for a follow-up instead of looking up at the hospital ceiling for a couple of days.
There seems to be a lot of medical evidence pointing out to the benefits of taking baby aspirin every day. What are your thoughts, even if your family doesn't have a history of heart disease?
Baby aspirin, what's the role of baby aspirin? Turn on my TV news and it says these are the symptoms of a heart attack: squeezing chest pressure, sense of impending doom, angels visiting on your shoulder, I made that part up, can't breathe very well, take 2 Bayer aspirin and call 911 around the same time. I take aspirin every day on general principle, baby aspirin. It's not baby aspirin anymore. If you give aspirin to babies for their fever, you really don't want to do that. If they have certain viral conditions, it can make them horribly sick. They get Rye syndrome, kidney failure, a whole lot of brain malfunction, a whole lot of things. Now it's sold as adult low-dose aspirin. And they can charge 4 times as much for it because it's for adults. But it's very effective. If you're under 65, probably not as effective as you'd like. If you have comorbid conditions, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, definitely if you've had a heart attack, definitely if you've had a stroke, it's terribly effective. And be careful, it doesn't play well at all with the new anticoagulants like warfarin.
Aren't they making a crystal aspirin? Where did I see that?
Advil fast acting.
It's a crystal aspirin, or I forget.
Chew an aspirin with warm water and it works terribly well. You can go through much of Europe and they have an intravenous aspirin that they give patients when they come in with a heart attack. You can immediately get a strong antiplatelet effect of it.
And don't they say that you're supposed to take your aspirin at night before you go to bed? Because that's when 90% of the heart attacks are, between late at night and 6 in the morning or something?
Yeah and no. Take an aspirin and the effect will last for about 5 days or a week afterwards. That's why surgeons like to take us off aspirin before we have elective surgery, whether it's a major root canal, a dental extraction, or taking out a gallbladder. If there's a choice, yeah, probably better to take it at that time, if there is.
What are your opinions on the newly discovered but old thoughts on stem cell research and what they can do for the human body nowadays? For instance, make us live longer. And
Stem cells. Before we're born, we're basically a fertilized stem cell, pluripotent, something that can turn into just about anything. And stem cells probably, again, have gotten beaten up, praised for things that they can never do, and demonized for places where they come from more than anything else along the line. Many creatures, not just human creatures, have the capacity for regeneration. You can pull the tail off a lizard, heck, an arm or a leg off a salamander, and they'll grow a new one. Many animals can have horrible spinal cord injuries and recover from them. These are things that humans can't do. Other animals have the capacity with injury to generate a lot of stem cells. We do. When you have a heart attack, if you screen the blood, if you look at the tissues, if you actually take a sample of someone's heart, you'll see cells de-differentiating and turning into stem cells, trying to repair it. The problem with the stem cell is that you need someone who will tell that stem cell what it ought to be doing, what it ought to be. A de-differentiated cell is the kind that turns into cancers, for example, which is really not a terribly good thing to do. We were doing a research project earlier, a couple of them, where we were injecting stem cells and some of the compounds that come from stem cells into folks with critical leg ischemia, people who looked like they were going to end up having amputations. And we had to screen very, very carefully to be sure that these were people that didn't have active cancers. The study got canceled about 6 months into it. Results were inconclusive, but it seemed like a pretty nifty idea to do. I think the whole idea raises a lot more questions than there are answers. We have the capacity within ourselves, under the right circumstances, to de-differentiate our tissue back to stem cells. We know that pretty much. We know the stem cells are pretty easy to find. When babies are born, they usually toss out the placenta. The blood in there has plenty of stem cells. There's no shortage of places that you can get it that aren't going to make people too politically unhappy. What we do with it, I don't know. There was an initiative here in California, you probably remember, where a lot of money was earmarked for stem cell research. And I think if that could be done carefully, rather than just throwing money out because it sounds like a sexy and clever idea, I think that would be wonderful. Neurodegenerative diseases, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's syndrome come to mind. More common diseases, senility, Alzheimer's disease come to mind. The tragedy of having injuries such as paraplegia and spinal cord injuries are things that go well to this. As I've said an infinite number of times, I'm going to go to the gym, take my vitamins, and I'm going to give a different answer to this question in 10 years, maybe next year. It's promising, and I really don't know. The question is far better than the answer I can come up with. I think we've got room for about 3 more questions, and then we better go and take a break. Yes?
Do you recommend other supplements other than aspirin and vitamins?
Supplements other than aspirin and vitamins. The problem is we've developed a multi-billion-dollar vitamin industry. Having said that, I personally go to Trader Joe's, I grab the big thing, and I take 2 of them every day. This is Jackson terribly happy when I do that. And I do that in my mind's eye that I'm not going to substitute that for any other good health habits. We need a minimum of 5 helpings of fresh fruits, solids, and vegetables. If we have diabetes, that can be a challenge. If we're on medicines like warfarin, that can create some interesting moments. But very often I do see people who are taking mineral and vitamin supplements instead of trying to go back to the basics. Hence my little handout about what's good and prudent. There are some things that will help us, and there are some things that don't. We have had high hopes for things that just don't work. I like niacin, and I probably don't like it for the right reasons. Niacin will lower cholesterol, no question about that. I have a horrible feeling that it doesn't lower the correct cholesterol that protects us. They have done 50 different studies, I can quote you, over the years that don't show any benefit in living longer if you're on niacin as opposed to nothing, even with low cholesterol. There are even more studies where they actually do imaging. Serial studies, the arteries in the neck and the legs and the coronary arteries. It will lower the cholesterol, but probably doesn't. I find that kind of sad. Ginkgo biloba was a good medicine. Keeps us from getting senile. Doesn't work. One thing that does work, hawthorn berries, if we have heart failure, makes us live a little better. I find that kind of interesting. How that works, I don't have to tell you. Coenzyme Q, CoQ8 is terribly helpful. If you're on a statin, your muscles ache. Coenzyme Q, it's called ubiquinone. It's a ubiquitously occurring antioxidant. It's present in all tissues. And they sell it with milligram strength, which is probably not a good idea. Because what it says on there and what you actually get are probably 2 different things. The standard dose is 100 milligrams, but if you go and get 10 different preparations, the strength of it will vary by a factor of 10. Those are pretty much the things I'm thinking of. Did you have any particular supplement you were thinking of that comes to mind? Elegant. Fish oil. It's pretty good. By and large, you should still have the fish around it when you're eating. Just have something with a furry pelt on there instead. If you eat anything that had a face on it was alive, probably more often than not, it should have had scales and feathers on it instead of a pelt.
Yeah, I would like to ask Dr. Jackson if fish oil is a good substitute for low-dose aspirin, if aspirin makes you bleed.
Very excellent question. The question is fish oil and aspirin. Fish oil will make your blood a little less sticky. And that might possibly be one of the ways that makes us live a little longer. Because when you take fish oil, it won't really lower your cholesterol. If it does, it's probably because the fish oil you're taking as a substitute for something else. And if you're going to have elective surgery, the surgeon likes to ask about supplements. They usually tell you to stop fish oil for a couple of days? That's an excellent question. Maybe.
About the flaxseed oil.
Flaxseed oil. I like flaxseed oil. I put it in the fridge and I put it on my salad at night. Is it a pro oil? Does it actually do that much good for us? It might. I don't know. I know that I do use it instead of more saturated oils. You can't find a can of Crisco in our household. You certainly can find flaxseed. I like it. I think it's kind of flavorful. I like it. Yeah.
Loveza compared to fish oil.
Loveza, L-O-V-E-Z-A, as opposed to fish oil. Did I spell it right?
Yes, it's a level 4 drug, which means it's quite expensive.
The people that come by my office, they buy me lunch. They buy my staff lunch. And they buy my time, and they tell me how good it is. And it is not on most formularies. And I'll tell you, I honestly don't think it's a whole lot better than the over-the-counter stuff. I really don't. I think it contains some extra calories, and I think it has a
4 times the HCA and, what is it, DCA?
it causes a large hole in our backside where our wallet used to be.
Right.
It's a common side effect. Causes changes in the body structure. A couple more, and then we'll break the check.
What about taking fish oil and aspirin?
If you take fish oil and aspirin, just be sure you're not bruising, be sure you're not bleeding. If you're getting nosebleeds, blood in the urine stool, and other places, you might be somewhere where that's a little bit more for you. There is no way that I or anyone can predict who's getting an extra bleeding problem from that, unfortunately.
She wants to know something about CoQ10.
What do you want to know?
I had the fellas talking about it.
Yeah. CoQ10, that's the stuff that we were talking about. It is an antioxidant medicine. Its principal benefit, in my opinion, is that many people, probably most people, are having some of the aches and pains that might be due to their statin medicine. It will improve it, and some people eliminate it. I think that's the principal thing. Results may vary. You don't know how potent your medicine is despite the milligrams on CoQ10. And in turn, you won't know what kind of result that you get. CoQ10 is not covered by any insurance program that I can think of, and it's relatively pricey. It goes for somewhere about $83 and $1 per tablet, in my experience. Anyone get better prices on CoQ10 here?
Try Costco.
Try Costco
Sam's.
or Sam's.
The vitamins go.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? I'm going to thank you very, very much. I really appreciate the chance to come down here and speak. I just like to tell you a little bit of what my personal experience during the COVID is, having practiced medicine on the front lines for a while. I like to sometimes throw out some things that have nothing and yet everything to do with the practice of medicine. Proper medicine should be preventative. If we can kick the can down the line, we can take that unhappy day when we do become disabled, incapacitated, and dead. We can push that down the road and get the largest number of good functional days. I think that's a pretty good goal. And that's why we're talking about things that don't necessarily have to do with the stock and trade of cardiologists, where we come in with knives and pumps and everything else. I really, really appreciate the interchange. I like to hear what the questions are, because it helps me focus on maybe where we're going to be. So until next time, thank you very much. And any other questions, come on up and